name is Gene Simitowski. I'm the president of this local chapter of Toastmasters 4745. And I can't tell you how wonderful it is to see each and every one of you here tonight. To hear Doug.
Don't start already. Don't you dare start already.
Doug and I go way back in this club. We have competed against each other time after time after time. And Doug won! But Doug has been out doing his own little things now, so I win now. Thank you, Doug.
It is definitely a pleasure to have you here with us tonight.
Thank you.
It's like bringing you back home.
It's homecoming for me, man. That's awesome.
Doug found his voice in the Windsor Toastmasters Club. I want you to watch him carefully because he's going to give a good speech tonight.
It's a lot of pressure. I didn't say anything about it being good.
And you're going to see what Toastmasters can do for you. Toastmasters is dedicated to helping people learn to communicate better, to giving them the ability to stand in front of a crowd or just in front of one other individual and actually talk in a meaningful way and have confidence. I think confidence is one of the best side effects of Toastmasters, because when you have confidence, you think you can do more stuff, and what you think you can do, you probably can. But if you think you can't, you can't. Confidence is important, and Doug has it. He got it right here in Windsor Toastmasters. Doug, I left the blurb that you gave me to introduce you at home on the computer.
That's okay.
I'm sorry, I was kind of racing around trying to do stuff.
That's okay. Yeah.
But
It ended with, he may be slow, but he does poor work.
okay. He may be slow, but he does poor work. Let's welcome Doug.
Only slide that really matters to me tonight, moving your life meter into the green zone. This isn't anything clinical. I didn't download this from the Mayo Clinic's website. It's the range of emotions that I go through regularly. And one of the stories I want to share with you was about 2 years ago. I was with a friend of mine at Starbucks. And we talked for about 2 hours on a wide variety of subjects. He was really wrestling what we refer to as self-imposed depression. Things that he had done in his own life, poor choices, hanging around with the wrong people, just putting himself in a place where life wasn't very good to him. So we talked for 2 hours. I gave him some of my best advice, and 6 months later, we got together, and I said, "How are you doing?" And he said, "I'm doing really well. I'm doing real." I said, you were in the depths of despair 6 months ago. What happened?" He said, "It was something that you said to me the day we got together that changed my life." And I said, "Well, what could that be?" I'm thinking it was something that I taught him about swimming the English Channel. I thought it was something that I told him about doing the Hawaii Ironman or being on the United States karate team in Russia. He said, "No, dude, it had nothing to do with any of that stuff." Don't flatter yourself. He said, "No, it was one thing in particular you said to me." And I said, "Well, what was that?" And he said, "It was when you told me how difficult life is for you." I said, "Yeah, I did tell you that." He said, "It was when you told me when you were younger, you thought, not that I wanted to take my own life, but I was ready for life to be over." I said, "Yeah, I remember telling you that." And I said to him, "Tim, why did that have such an impact on your life?" And he said, "Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was stuck on an island, that somebody understood some of the things that I wrestled with. He said, because Doug, I've known you for 30 years, man, and anybody looking at you from the outside would say, you got it all together. Life has been easy on you. It's been and for you to tell me how difficult life has been, it really comes as a great surprise. And I said, Tim, well, it wasn't always that way. I've had to do a lot of work. It's what I refer to as the life meter. I know if I'm not working on my life, me personally, my life falls to the left of center. For the first 30 years of my life, when I would wake up, I would ask myself, is this all there is? Why is life so hard on me? Why am I depressed? Why am I going through these range of emotions? I didn't know why. Now, for some people, historically, maybe the place that they came from, their family of origin, was a difficult. I didn't have that. I had 2 parents that loved me. I had 3 siblings. One of them's here tonight. You got the best chair in the house. Right. You're paying extra for that. Siblings that didn't create strife in the family. We didn't have any addictions. We didn't have kids in trouble. There was enough money in the family. I had all the reasons to have a life that one would think that you're living over here, but for some reason, I was embarrassed to share that. I couldn't share it with anybody, because when you have everything that I was blessed with, how in the world could you say to somebody, this is where you're living your life? You become ashamed. You're on this island. You don't want to talk to anybody because you think that you're the only one that's experiencing that. And when Tim shared that with me, that he saw me as living over here, and I do, but it requires a great deal of work. It really surprised me. One of the things that really changed my life about 4 years ago, it was August 4 years ago. You guys remember when Robin Williams took his life? Man, that blindsided me. I had no idea, because the mask that he wore, the mask that we all wear, we want people to see our lives as something other than the way they really may be. Robin Williams really surprised me, because behind his mask, he was obviously a very troubled man. When I talk to you about this screen up here, I'm not talking about people with clinical depression. I'm talking about people that if you're working on your life, you can move that meter. We've been taught to think that life, we live in a box. That's why we're always told to think beyond the box, live beyond the box. I invite you to start thinking of your life as like a meter. A meter like the gas gauge in your car. When you see the gas gauge in your car go down, what do? Stop at the gas station. We know we've got to fill it up. I began to look at my life as a meter, and realizing there are days where I'm over here, there are days over here, and then I ask myself the question, well, what are you doing about it? And then when I become actively engaged, I notice that my life meter goes up. It's one of the most powerful ways that I've begun to understand my own life, is thinking of it as a meter rather than a box. Well, one of the most powerful stories that changed my life was in 1993. I was in Hawaii to do a race called the Hawaii Ironman Triathlon. There are a lot of athletes in here that are familiar with it. It's one of the more stupid things you can do at the beach. It combines a 2.4-mile ocean swim, a 112-mile bike, and a 26.2-mile run, all in 90-degree heat, 90% humidity. How many Ironmen do we have in here? Got a few, right? Yeah. All right. So I arrive at the Ironman check-in office, and I was there 2 weeks early, and I'm asked, what division are you in? I didn't know. It was the 4th race I'd ever done in my life. Most people are training for this for 5 years. The guy says, what division are you in? I said, I don't know. And he looks at me up and down. I'm thinking he's looking at my clean-shaven legs, and I'm still not comfortable with that. And he said, well, how much do you weigh? And I said, well, I weigh 240 pounds. And then with a snicker on his face, he says, oh, you're a Clydesdale. You guys know what a Clydesdale is, right? It's a damn workhorse. So I carry a Clydesdale that my niece gave me. Did you see this?
Yeah, it's like that.
Wherever I go. So you see, in the Hawaii Ironman, it's a race designed for thoroughbreds. 2,000 people enter the race each year, but only 20 of us are thoroughbreds. So when he tells me you're a Clydesdale, the first thing I think is, I don't belong here. It's the Ironman's way of saying you're not right for the part. So And what it did is it opened up a bunch of old tapes that I've always played, the core belief of I'm not good enough, I don't belong, you don't fit in, you don't measure up. How many times have I run those tapes through my mind? So I leave the office, and this guy follows me out, and he said, I saw what happened in there. He said, are you okay? And I said, not really. He said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm thinking about going home. He said, dude, you've trained for years to do this. And I said, actually, I've been training for 4 months. He said, well, maybe you should go home then. He said, no, I'm just busting you. I said, I don't feel right for the party. He said, I don't feel right for the party either, but I've done this race. This is my 5th time. It's not a matter, he said. It's not a question if there are going to be times in your life where you don't feel like you measure up. There are going to be times where you don't fit in. There are going to be times when you don't feel good enough. We all are exposed to that. He said, the question really boils down to, Doug, when you reach one of those points in your life, is you have to decide if you're going to give up or if you're going to get up. That's the choice we all have to make. You're going to give up or you're going to get up. I said, oh, great. So I decided I was going to stay around 2 weeks to train with this guy, and I was going to do my best to finish the race. Well, I trained with this guy for, like I say, about 10 days, and he was one of those guys that was a little bit more of an expert than you like in your life. So I made the decision I was going to beat this guy on game day. So the first event of the day is the swim. It's a 2.4 mile ocean swim. I'm a decent swimmer. We're given 2 hours and 20 minutes to get out of the water. I got out in about an hour and 5, hour and 8. I don't remember the first year. My buddy got out of the water at 2 hours and 19 minutes. He just missed the cutoff time by a minute. I had a well over an hour head start on this guy. I thought, yes! So then you've got to get on your bike and you've got to ride through the lava fields up into the turnaround point in Avi. I finished my bike ride and I added another hour lead on the guy. To give you an idea, I was at mile 13 of the marathon when he was just getting off his bike. Now, you don't need to know too much about marathon racing, that if you're at mile 13 in a 26-mile race, you're not going to be caught. But it was late, and I was tired. I was at mile 24. If I was going any slower, I'd have been going backwards. Looked like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. When I hear the encouraging words from the back, keep going, Doug, you're looking strong. Where's my friend? He made up the distance. Mile 24. I said, there's no way this guy beat me to the finish line. I let him beat me to the finish line. It became a mirage. In about 2 minutes, he just sauntered back. Here's the thing that changed my life. There are a lot of takeaway points for me that changed my life on that day. Here's the thing. I was 38 years old. I was in the best shape of my life. This guy was 69. Oh. You see, at 38 years old, if you had asked me on that day, prior to that moment, if someone that was 69 was old, I'd have said, you bet. That's an old person. It completely changed how I thought about the aging process. Think about it. 2.4 mile ocean swim, 112 mile bike ride, 26 mile. I was in the best shape of my life and he passes me. It changed how I looked at the entire process of aging. I said to myself, someday I'm going to be that guy, because he inspired me so much to live my life in a way that I hadn't up until that point. So I see the guy at the airport. His name was Bill. For some reason, he went by the name Keith. Bill Keith, that must have been his middle name. I see him at the airport the next day. He's moving around like this, like he just come from a Zumba class. And when I tell you, it was a monumental effort to put my foot on a curb. It was, man. I could barely move my body. I'm kind of like, oh my God. And seriously, he's moving around like he's dancing. And I said to him, Bill, how is that possible, man? How? I said, I don't understand. He said to me, Doug, it wasn't always possible. And I said, what do you mean? He said, when I was your age, I used to go home at the end of the day. I'd turn my television set on. I'd have a glass of wine. I'd open the mail. And he said, I could feel myself getting old. He said, I refused to get old. I didn't mind aging, but I refused to get old. And I said to him, what's the difference? He said, here's the difference, Doug. The key to life You guys, this one sentence has changed my life. In fact, for those of you that have read my book, I'm hoping that the driving piece of information that I'm trying to share in that book is this next sentence. He said, the key to life is to maintain an active interest in your physical, your spiritual, and your emotional well-being. I'm going to repeat that. The key to life, Doug, is to maintain an active interest in your physical, your spiritual, and your emotional well-being. When you do, he said, the only thing that will change is what you see in the mirror. And boy, has that changed. He said, you know, Doug, I've lived long enough, and I understand that that's not how most people live their lives. You see, most people move through life, he said, passively engaged. They're passively engaged. They go through the motions every day. And the reason why their life meter starts to tilt to the left is they're going through life passively. The key to life, he said, is that you've got to maintain an active interest. And that changed everything. You see, up until that point in time, I had never really taken personal responsibility for my own well-being. I just thought I was supposed to be happy. I had all the things to be happy for. One of my favorite lines, I don't know who said it, the only place that happiness comes before hard work is in the dictionary. Isn't that the truth? The only place that happiness comes before hard work is in the dictionary. When he told me that most people live lives of passive engagement, I knew, sign me up. I've done that for 30-something years. But the moment he gave me the power to take personal responsibility for what I was going to do with my life, it was amazing how my life started to move into the green zone, where it's been ever since. That doesn't mean I don't have days like that. There are plenty of days that I have like that, but I know I've got to do the work to start to move the meter up. So that changed the game for me. And that's one of the things, again, I invite you to consider your life is again, my life, if I'm not working on it, I know is going to reside. I don't reside down here, but my life's going to reside down here. There are people, my sister being one of them, her life is kind of over here. And the people that are over here all the time, well, we hate those people. We all know those people. They're the ones that sit in the front of the classroom and they're the first ones to raise their hand. I know the answer, right? No, you know what I'm saying? So I know I can be over here, but it takes work. So again, if you're over here, again, if you have an issue that you're dealing with because it's a chemical imbalance, I'm talking about the vast majority of, one of my favorite lines from Thoreau, the mass of men live lives in quiet desperation. You've all heard that line, the mass of men live lives in quiet desperation. You guys, I was living my life in quiet desperation, but the day a guy tells me, Doug, you got to maintain an active interest. So for me, somebody said, well, is the reason why you swim the English Channel because of ego? I said, no. The reason why you write a book, the ego? No, you guys. That's how I move my meter. I know there are two things that I need to be doing in my life to move my meter. The two things that I need to do, and I wish that the first one I didn't have to do, but I do. I say I need to move my body over long periods of time and long distances. I wish I could go to a Zumba class and have my meter move. I can't. I know that I need something that I'm working on, that carrot down the line, writing a book, things that engage me from a physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. So, I'm going to share with you, in fact, let's do a little quiz. There are two attributes that I believe that people need in their lives to be able to start to move their meter. Anybody guess what? These are my own personal feelings. You might have other ones that you want to share as well. Anybody want to share what those two things might be? They begin with P's. Anybody?
Persistence.
You, sir?
Well...
Come on, stand up. What's your name? Steve. Steve what?
No last names.
No. All right, Steve.
So...
hold on. Have we ever met before this evening?
Am I supposed to admit that? So it's a tough question to answer, but I'm not sure about anybody else in the room. I've got two teenage boys, and I would say what the two things that I guess you do begin with P that would get me in the green zone are pizza and my pet.
That's not what I was looking for, Steve. There is a prize for this if you get it right.
All right, hold on.
It's a good prize. Yeah.
Can I phone a friend?
You cannot phone a friend, no lifeline, nothing.
All right.
Maybe somebody throws something at you.
Well, my guess would be, obviously, it has to have something to do with passion.
Passion is one of them,
Close.
yeah.
All right, so the second might be purpose.
Purpose. I like it. Purpose and passion. Absolutely right.
Someone told me about prize.
Yes. Have you ever stayed at the Hamilton Hotel on the Grand Isle of Bermuda?
I have not.
Well, good, because that's not what you want. Well, what you did win is a nice bottle of shampoo from when I stayed there. And some
Something really handy, right?
And some latex gloves. I don't know how you use those, but
That's gonna last you a year.
No kidding,
you
right?
good point. Those are two things, man, we all need to have. We need to have a purpose. And it's amazing how people move through life, including me, move through without any purpose in their life. They get up, they go through a routine, there's no purpose. There's no and if you can't have a purpose, something to wake you up in the morning, something to get you out of bed, if you don't have a purpose and passion, I can tell you this, folks, I can tell you unequivocally, you're living down here. We need, each one of us as human beings, we need something to help us grow. We need a purpose. We need to serve other people. We need to be working on ourselves. That's just part of the deal. Again, the only place that happiness comes before hard work is in the dictionary. All right, so purpose and passion. That's how we move our life meter based on my life experience. There are also 5 rules that I've developed. I've written about them in the book. 5 rules, to me, that help us achieve any goal. And it's our goals in life, following goals, working on ourselves that move our life meter. That's part of our purpose. Having things set out in front of us that we can work on to make us stronger, better, faster, whatever than we were yesterday. Let's talk about those 5 goals. You know, I may have to cut this way short because I didn't bring my charging cord for my computer. So you guys may be really lucky. All right, so rule number 1. Rule number 1 is, how do you advance without the remote? Okay, whoops. Here's the guy that I was telling you about. This is the guy at 86 years old now. In fact, I called him just before I went over to England. I called him up. He lives in California. He's tuning pianos. They did a YouTube video on the guy. Keith Albright, he's the guy that passed me at mile 24. Even at 86 years old, he was riding his bicycle to as many as 14 piano tunings a day. 86 years old. And the reason why he rode his bike for 2 reasons. Again, it was part of his whole premise of maintaining an active interest in his life, but he said it was also in Southern California, it was a lot easier to find parking spots for his bike. At 92, I talked to him before I do my channel swim. I said, you know what? You changed my life. You motivated me. And he said, I've motivated a lot of people. At 92 years old, he said he was no longer riding his bike. His family wouldn't let him because he fell off his bike. He broke his hip. But when he was still at 92 years old, he was still actively tuning pianos. How cool is that? All right, so rule number 1. Hang with those that have achieved exactly what you want to achieve. I can't tell you how many times I've violated that rule. Before I did my first Ironman, I called a buddy of mine, a marathoner up in Boston. I had a lot of respect for this guy. And I said to him, listen, I'm thinking about doing the Ironman. He said, dude, you can't do an Ironman. I said, why? He said, you've never even done a marathon. Well, that was true. I had never done a marathon. He said, you can't do it. I went out and I did my first marathon. It wasn't very pretty, but I finished. I called the guy up. I said, hey, I did my first marathon. I want to do the Ironman. He said, you can't do an Ironman. Most people train for an Ironman for 5 years. You want to do it in 4 months? That's absolutely crazy. And I asked him, well, how many Ironmans have you done? He said, well, I've never done one. So as it turned out, I found a woman in West Hartford. You guys, a lot of you swimmers in here know who Jeff Stewart is. Dion Stewart, his mom. Dion Stewart was the first person, along with another woman by the name of Anne Marie DeMonte. They were both in their 50s. And I said, you guys, I've only done 3 triathlons before. I'm thinking about doing the Hawaii Ironman. What do you think? And I held the phone. I knew they were going to What are you, crazy? And both said the same thing. Of course you can. I said, well, I talked to a guy, an elite marathoner in Boston. I told him that he said, they both said this, well, how many has he done? And I said, well, he hasn't done any. Then you're asking the wrong guy. And you see, that's one of the mistakes that we make in terms of goal setting. How many times you've set a goal for yourself, you then go to someone that you work with, someone you care about, somebody you love in your family, and you say, I'm thinking about doing this, and they'll tell you all the reasons why you can't achieve that goal. Does that happen to any one of you, or am I the... It's happened to every one of us, right? So again, I want you to make a promise. Rule number one, in terms of goal achievement, is you've got to find the people that have achieved exactly what it is that you want to do, because I promise you two things. When you find that person, two things will occur. They will never laugh at you, and they will never tell you that it's not possible, because they were once where you are now. They're going to tell you, instead of telling you you can't do it, they're going to tell you all the reasons why you can do it, and then more importantly, they're going to show you how. Here's a case in point. Again, I had messed up that specific lesson so many times in my life. I finally got it straight, so I'm thinking about doing the English Channel. And I find out there's a guy that swims at the same pool that I swim at in Simsbury, Connecticut, that did the English Channel. What are the chances of that? So I arranged to have lunch with him, and he, as it turned out, wanted to do an Ironman. So we met for lunch, and I started to pick his brain and kind of what I thought. He didn't tell me that it wasn't possible for me. He told me all the reasons why it was possible, and he was going to help show me how. In fact, this individual was the first person in 1985 to swim the English Channel from the state of Connecticut. As it turns out, he grew up in this little town of Windsor, Connecticut. 1985. One of the reasons why we go to the people that have already achieved, it's amazing when they're a pioneer in whatever it is, whether it's building violins or whether it's writing books. If we go to people, they're going to teach us how. And this one individual, I was hoping that this woman might be here. Her name is Marty Mcmahon. Marty Mcmahon has more English Channel swimmings than any other man or woman in the United States. She's done it 16 times. 3 of those were double crossings, where she swam 21 miles. You have to get out of the water. You have to walk above the high tide mark, and then you get back in the water within 10 minutes and have to swim back. She swam 21 miles across, 21 miles back. Double crossing, she's done it 16 times. She went in 1994, 9 years after Marty had done his channel crossing. She went to Marty, because this was long before the days of Dr. Google. You had to talk to people about how to do these things. So she went to Marty. And then a woman by the name of Liz Fry, 55 years old, set the world record for being the oldest person in the world to do a double crossing of the English Channel. She went to Marty because he was such a wealth of information. One of the things you may not be aware of is there are more English Channel swimmers in the United States from the state of Connecticut than any other state in the Union. Who'd have thought that? They can all be directly traced back to Marty Mcmahon. Put your hands together, folks, for my buddy Marty Mcmahon. Hanging around with guys like that, again, they're going to show you what's possible. When you have people on your team that help you believe in yourself, when you don't believe in yourself, they help you move that life meter. I can't tell you how much this guy has helped me move my life meter. We've got another channel swimmer, John, back there. John did it as a duo, first year. Last year went back, came within 2 miles of the French coast. He's going back again this year to try it again. Put your hands together for my buddy John. Do we have any other channel swimmers in here? I think that's it, the channel swimmers, right? All right. Rule number 1, hang around with the people that have already achieved exactly what it is that you want to achieve. They're going to show you the roadmap how to get to the promised land. Rule number 2, become an expert on the subject matter. We have it easy today, you guys. If you want to learn anything, you can go on the internet. That's not always the way that it was. Sometimes you can't become an expert on the subject matter because sometimes you can't find the people that you need to hang around with. Sometimes you can't find all the information that you want, but whenever possible, get your hand on as much information as you possibly can. Years ago, in 1973, I graduated from high school, and I decided that because it was people like me that made the top half of my class possible, I'll give you a chance to process that. I graduated from high school, have you know, with a 1.97 average. I was an underachiever. So I decided that college was not for me. As it turned out, I did get my 4-year degree, but college at that point in time wasn't for me. I decided to go to Aspen, Colorado, where I met this gentleman. We had played basketball in high school together. Happened to see Peter in a grocery store in Aspen, Colorado. I said, that looks like Rourke. I go down another aisle and I see another guy. That looks like Tootie. As it turns out, a bunch of my friends from a competing school were there as well. Well, I got out to Aspen and I can't believe how disappointed I was by the size of the mountains. And somebody said to me, where are you going to go to see bigger mountains? Alaska? I thought, wow, that sounds... The only thing I had known about Alaska was the place of igloos and Eskimos. So I started reading everything I could about Alaska, got really fascinated, ended up working on a fishing boat. I studied this place for 7 years and I finally got there. I became an expert on it. I knew how to get a job. I knew how to look for a job. I learned as much as I possibly could and I got that job. But again, that's not always possible. And when I think about somebody that moved on a particular dream that they had without having all the information, I think of one person in particular that changed my life in terms of inspiring me despite the fact that she didn't have all the information that she would have liked. One of my favorite sayings is, if the dream is big enough, the facts don't matter. The fact that I was 60 years old when I swam the English Channel didn't matter. The fact that I wasn't a very good swimmer, it didn't matter. What I don't want you to do if you have a specific goal in your life is to sit on the sidelines and wait for the economy to be just right, wait for the conditions to, wait for all the information, wait for the conditioning to occur. Because I think about this person, and this person decided that they wanted to do a day hike on the Appalachian Trail. Never had done any hiking, what to speak of, and decided that it might be fun to go out and do a little hiking on the Appalachian Trail. So with that equipment that was held together with Band-Aids, duct tape, and hope, she went out and did a little hiking on the Appalachian Trail and got the idea that maybe it would be fun to hike the entire length of the Appalachian Trail with 1 or 2 days practice. You guys know the Appalachian Trail is 2,100 miles long, 2,200 miles long. She had no business being out there, heads to Georgia, had met somebody that had the equal dream of hiking the Appalachian Trail, met this person. That person lasted on the trail for about 3 or 4 days before she realized sleeping on the bugs, sleeping in the snow, because typically they'll start in the early spring when there's snow on the ground. And so, as it turned out, she went down to Georgia and started a hike. This is a 6-month hike, 6 months sleeping on the ground in all sorts of weather, as a woman having to worry about the safety issues that any woman would be concerned about. And she didn't put a lot of faith that she was going to do it, but went down there and gave it her best. Well, 6 months later, she summited Mount Katahdin, having completed the entire length. That year, 2,000 people started the trail, 200 people finished. Of those 200 people that finished, only 20 of them were women. Please give my friend Regina Jostoffer a round of applause. Regina, what was that like? You didn't even know I took that off here. That's not, I don't know if that's the What was that like? You went out there, you had no business being out there. You didn't have the right equipment. Well, you found out that you had the right equipment, but it weighed twice as much as it probably should have weighed. At the beginning. So she gets a saw, she's cutting off legs off her cot, or not her cot, but all the equipment that you could just rip in half, you're ripping it in half, right?
every piece you think every night. What can I, even the shelter tonight?
Yeah. What was that like in terms of your mindset? What did it do to your life meter? Because I know you've done hiking since. So there's something that you got from that. What can you share with us that changed your life on that journey? You sent me an email the other day, or a text the other day. I'm going to see if I can find it. We talked for just a minute or two while I see if I can find it.
Well, as my father would say, oh, Regina, everybody dreams of going to hike in the Appalachian Trail. But yeah, it was a great experience. Again, I only did 2 overnights, home with a piece of luggage, as John calls it, and 2 bottles of wine. That was our first hike.
Important items with us.
Those are critical.
The second one, I actually had bought a backpack and went with one of my girlfriends and tried it all out, and then I went down and just started hiking. I knew when I bought my backpack that I was actually going to go do it.
You did?
Yeah, because
Okay.
it was, you don't spend enough, I've got a really decent backpack, and that was an important piece that once I bought that, I was
Yeah.
going to have to use it now. I went out and now I'm going to have to do it. But the minute I put my foot on that trail, I was home.
You knew.
I just
You knew.
hiked
There was
it,
no
and I
stopping
just
you.
Well, I can't say that.
Okay.
When I got to New Hampshire.
Yep. Why New Hampshire? Bugs?
No, everything was vertical up. So yeah, the whites are very difficult.
And up until that point in time, you didn't have the elevation changes.
Well, not really. I mean, the highest point is Smoky Mountains, but
Yep.
it was like, we always said, like Georgia, it was like, how many mountains to the day? In Tennessee, it's how many days to the mountain.
Yeah.
And then in Virginia, it was a mountain day.
Yeah.
And then it kind of flattened out. If anybody's hiked in Connecticut, it's just the flattest place ever.
I've hiked in Connecticut, and I wouldn't have said that it was.
I
I would not have said that. But thanks for that.
Then you head back into
Marty, you would have said the same thing. Yeah, don't go laughing too hard at me, buddy.
Then
Yeah.
you get back into Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and you start hitting the mountains again. But Maine was the biggest surprise. It was 350 miles still when you hit the coast of Maine. I mean, the border of Maine. And
Yeah.
it was probably some of the most wilderness ever.
Yeah.
It was fantastically wonderful.
Yeah.
The people I met, when I did hit the whites,
Yeah.
and I lost everybody by that point. Most people have dropped off. I met some great people there.
What was your trail name? Everybody gets a trail name.
Smiles.
Smiles. Okay, that's big. So Regina, I sent her an email the other day, or a text the other day, and told her that she was a powerful inspiration in my life. And she wrote me back, I'm truly humbled. I did not register for tonight. Did I need to? I only went with bad equipment just once. I bought a bunch, went a second time to try it, and then took off. Ignorance and a strong love of walking in the woods, not to mention amazing people along the way, is what contributed to my success. I really like what you wrote here. Trust. Trust the right strangers with a shared motivation for you to succeed will appear. How often I've seen that whenever I've made a decision. I made a decision to swim the English Channel, and this man walks into my life. That's a really powerful thing. Trust the right strangers with a shared motivation for you to succeed will appear. Pretty cool stuff. Thanks, Regina. Rule number 1. Who remembers what rule number 1 is? Hang with the people that have already achieved exactly what you want to achieve. Rule number 2 is what? Become an expert as much as you possibly can. Rule number 3. Do the work. Man. I hate that one. Do the work. Why doesn't it come so easy? So listen to this. When I was training for Ironman, the most miles I ever swam in the course of a year was 200 miles. In January of 2015, I made the decision I was going to swim 200 miles in a swimming pool in that month. 200 miles is a lot of swimming in a swimming pool. The third day of the month, maybe it was the 4th day of the month, I get to the pool and I'm scheduled to do a 4-hour swim. 4 hours back, you start to really question your sanity. And I get to the pool and I say, there's no way I can do this today. There's just no way I can do it. And I came up with a philosophy that I use any of those times where I don't want to do the work, and I call it manage the minute. When you know you can't do something, whether it's to write a page in that book, whether it's to sit down and play that guitar when you're first learning and get your fingers bloodied, when you know you can't do something, dial it back to what you know you can do. And for me, I knew I could get in the pool and I could swim for 1 minute. But I had to ask myself at the end of the minute, could I do another minute? So that day I got in the pool, I swam for a minute, I was done. Dude, can you swim? Yeah, I can swim another minute. I did that maybe 4 or 5 times. The next thing I knew it, 4 hours went by. And I got my 4 hours in, but it all started because, as you guys know, the hardest part of doing anything, especially in working out, I always tell people, the hardest part of the workout is tying your shoelaces, right? Isn't that anything? The hardest part is starting. So as it turned out, I swam 23 days that month, 23 days in a row. Thankfully, I did a 7-hour swim on the 23rd day. I got chlorine poisoning, and my doctor wouldn't let me go back in the pool again. 23 swims. Do the work. You've got to do the work. And what happens is oftentimes we become what I call dopamine chasers. Man, when you first have that first goal, you get elevated real fast, and man, you're on top of the world. You figured all this out, and you're flying high, and then you hit this ceiling. Man, it's hard, and you want to quit. And that's what happens to a lot of people in terms of, we're all good at setting goals, but oftentimes achieving those goals we're not so good at. You hit the ceiling, oh my word. You settle down, you move over 100 feet, and you start a new thing. And then before long, you find out you hit the ceiling again. And that's what happens to a lot of dopamine chasers. Once the wear of the excitement wears off, we move over and we start something new. The next time that happens to you, when you're pursuing any goal, what I want you to do is, I call it, embrace the ugly and embrace the pain. When you get to that moment where, man, this is a lot of work, know that you're almost there. You see, if you're always back where it's easy, you're not even close to being where you need to be. You've got to get to where the point, John, and you and I did a 6-hour, you did a 6-hour swim one day. John looked like he was a vertical swimmer in hour 6, but he was out there driving away, getting it in. It's not easy to do, but again, the next time you come up against that wall where, man, just do it for a minute. Just do it for a minute. If you can do it for a second minute, do it a second minute. Because one of the things that I found is that the discipline to do something comes before the benefit. If you can discipline yourself to do something on those days where you don't really feel like doing it, don't do it. Don't beat yourself up. Don't do it all. Don't do the whole thing. Do whatever you need to do, because it's more important that you maintain the discipline than do the whole thing. Maintain the discipline. The discipline's got to come before the benefit. And again, when you come to that moment where it's ugly and you want to quit, don't. You're close to where you need to be. When I think of a guy that really has inspired me, I've known this guy for 45 years. I met him on a track at Central Connecticut State University, college at the time. And our football coach, we were both PE majors. We called ourselves gym majors. And our coach would tell us to go down on the track and run 2 miles, run 3 miles. That's all he'd say. He'd sit in the stands the whole time, never counted our laps, and would read the book, I remember, Paper Lion. That's the only book he had for 8 weeks. I think he only read a page every time. And I see this other idiot, and we were the only 2 guys in the entire track that ran. We ran the whole thing. We ran the whole track. And we noticed that even though all the other guys were walking, they all finished always before us. How is it possible? We're the only guys that are running. They're all finishing. Well, the only way that can happen is if they're not doing their laps. He and I were out doing the work. Well, this guy's still doing the work, and he inspires me because I think it was 3 years ago. There's a fundraiser called, I believe it's called Erase. Is that how you pronounce it? How do you pronounce it? Erase. He's in his 60s, and he decides he's going to go out and do 200 miles on his bike in one day. It's a lot of miles on a bike. The following year, he increased the threshold of what he wanted to raise for funds, knowing that he wasn't going to be able to make that threshold. It was a safe bet. And if he got enough contributions, that he promised that he would ride 300 miles in a day, knowing that there's no way, he set the threshold so high in terms of the dollar amount, he was going to make it. Well, guess what? He made it. He rides his bike 300 miles in a day. That's a lot of miles on a bike. Next year, this particular year, again, this guy's in his 60s. He sets his threshold even higher. He gets up in the morning, he rides his bike from here to the Canadian border. Now, I've done some long bike rides, and I always have. The longest I've ever done in a day is 178 miles. And I have a friend come pick me up and bring me home. This idiot got on his bike, rode home the next day. Almost 500 miles in 2 days. 500 miles. He's done the work since I've known him in 1974. You've got to do the work. This guy does the work every week, and he's at races every day. He's pushing his body. He is in his 60s. Please put your hands together for my buddy Dave Rustico. You're changing lives. Regina, a lot of you guys in here, I'm not going to be able to, I could tell stories about a bunch of people in here. Marty, Rusty, you guys are changing lives. You got tears in your eyes right now, man. When I see you out there at 60 years old, pushing your body, raising money, you don't know what kind of an impact you've had on my life meter. There's so many people in this room that have changed my life because you inspire people. When you move through life the way that you guys do, you inspire people to say, you know, I can do more. I can do more, man. There's more out there for me. So I appreciate your friendship for over 45 years and being on that track with me, man. I really appreciate it. Rule number one. What was rule number one? Hang with the people that have already achieved what you want to achieve. Rule number two is what? Become an expert on the subject matter. Rule number three. That one sucks. Do the work. Rule number four. Be patient, but persistent. This stuff's not going to come overnight. It doesn't come overnight. I wish it did. It doesn't come overnight. A few years ago, I saw this woman in the pool next to me at the Y. She weighed 400 pounds. She had no business being in the pool. Do you know how hard it is to walk into a club, a YMCA, or any club when you're 400 pounds? How scary that is walking through that door for the first time, knowing that you're going to be judged. What is this 400-pound person being? What is that person doing here? How scary that must be. But still, she showed up. She showed up every day, man. She was in the pool. And it didn't look as much like a swim as it looked like she was fighting sharks. It wasn't a pretty stroke, and she was there with a wetsuit on. She had mask, fins, snorkel, and every day, man, she showed up. She showed up. She was patient. She knew she had to change her life meter because up until that point in time, her life did not work, man. She was living on the left side of that meter. And life was getting dark and closing in on her, and it wasn't pretty, but she showed up every day, and one day she stepped on that scale and she lost 50 pounds. How cool is that? But that wasn't enough for her. She knew there was still more left for her. And she kept on pushing. She kept on showing up. She kept on being persistent. She steps on the scale and she's lost 100 pounds. And she kept on showing up, and she kept on being persistent, and she kept on changing her mindset. And it was funny, as I saw her in the pool and got to know her, the smaller her body got, the bigger her smile got. She stepped on the scale and lost another 50 pounds. What are we up to? 200. All right, let me dial it back. 150, she lost 187 pounds by showing up, doing the work, being patient, being persistent. Please put your hands together for my friend Brenda. I'm going to show you.
And not like that.
Can you imagine how hard it must have been for her to show up at the pool like that? Knowing that she was going to be judged. Knowing how hard. I mean, the mountain was in front of her. It's easy not to go up the mountain, but she decided she was going to take that journey. We talked about it in the pool the other day. We see what it's done to your body. But I wanted to ask you to share, and you said you would, what has it done to your life meter?
Everything. I was morbidly obese my whole life. I'm 60 now, and I'm living. Better late than never. And if I didn't have this guy next to me all these years, it wouldn't have worked.
Good for you, Chuck. That's
43
awesome.
years.
Yeah. Nobody does it alone, man. Nobody does it alone. Yep.
6 years ago, I just had it again. I have always lost, but I've never kept it off. So I was looking for the real answer of keeping it off this time.
So it wasn't about
And-
diet. It was about changing your mindset.
It was here.
Yeah.
And it was all here. And, I got a little counseling. I realized I was really brought up not well
Yeah.
and being abused, and that was wrong. And it took me a lot of years to get over that.
Yeah.
But then a year ago, I was starting to put a little back on. I'm like, oh, no, I can't do this. I have to get to my goal. I have 3 pounds to go.
Where are you right now? What I said 187. But
187.
187.
Yep. 3
okay.
pounds. That's all I need. Come on. But the last 3 are killing me. So,
You're doing the work. She
Yes,
was there
yeah.
this morning. All right, so one of the things I didn't tell you is when you lose that much weight, you have some extra skin on your body.
oh, yeah.
And insurance doesn't cover that. So I want you to know I've been sharing your story with people around the pool, and we have $500 to give you towards your surgery.
No.
Because of how many lives you've changed, how many lives she shares her story now with other people that are wrestling with the same type of thing, teaching classes, inspiring people, helping people move their life meter. You're making a difference, man.
Thank you. Oh,
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh.
That's so sweet.
All right. Rule number 1 is what? Hang with the people that have done exactly, not the people that want, exactly the people that have done what you want to do. Rule number 2.
Be the expert.
Become an expert on the subject matter. Rule number 3. Do the work. Rule number 4. Be patient but persistent, man. This journey has taken her 6 years. It's the last 2 years that I've noticed her. 6 years she's been patient but persistent. Last rule that I want to share with you is benchmark your progress. So I'm at the pool, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and I see Ralph in the pool. And I don't want to swim next to Ralph because I know every time Ralph's in the lane next to me, I got to work harder than I want to work. Ralph's there. Ralph! Hoping another lane's going to open up before I get to that end of the pool, and it doesn't. So I have to get in the pool next to Ralph. And Ralph's looking at his watch. Now, there's no reason to look at your watch in a swimming pool for the time of day because there's clocks everywhere. Ralph's looking at his watch. Why would Ralph be looking at his watch in a swimming pool? What?
Check his time.
Check his time, right? Check his time. What? Did I get worse? Did I get better? He's benchmarking his progress. How did I do? How am I doing? Am I doing better than I did yesterday? You see, in life, when we set these goals, these things are going to move our life meter. Man, you've got to have a benchmark. You have to understand that this is where I want to get to, and I need a benchmark to see where I am today versus where I was yesterday. He's benchmarking. He's benchmarking. Did I do better today than I did yesterday? Here's the part of the story that you don't know. My friend Ralph is 75 years old. 75 years old! You see, for Ralph, it's not enough to show up. It's not enough to just do laps in the pool. It's, did I get better? Did I get better? And that's really, in terms of moving your life meter, I have found that it's not about just showing up. It's to find, did I get better? And every day, Ralph is getting a little bit better, a little bit stronger. I'll see him at Starbucks sometimes on a Saturday morning. He comes in, I said, what were you doing? He said, I just did a 50-mile bike ride. 75 years old, still looking to improve his life every day. How powerful is that? I believe I use what I call the 10 over, 10 under. You have to adjust it based on your age. I look to hang around with guys like Ralph, 10 years, 15 years older than me. Why? They inspire me to who I might be able to be 10 years from now as long as I stay active. And then I hang around with people that are 10 years younger than me because they try to keep me, they force me to try to keep up with them. Don't ever hang around with people your own age. I went to my 45th class high school reunion last, was it September, October? I can't believe how many old people were there. You know, they say the conversations of life come this way. The first thing you do is, what college are you going to? You tell your friends what college you're going to. And then who you're dating, and then when you're getting married, and then what your kids right? And then the conversations of life come down to what medications are you on and what joint did you have replaced, right? Avoid those conversations as long as you possibly can. All right, I'm going to leave you with one last thing tonight. First of all, 5 rules are what? Number 1, hang with the people that have achieved exactly what you want to achieve. Rule number 2, become an expert on the subject matter. Number 3, do the work. Number 4, I want you to think of these people that I brought into your lives tonight. And rule number 5, benchmark your progress. All right? I'm going to leave you one last thing. This is a story that I can only share this week every year. This happened about 13 or 14 years ago. It was 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks after Thanksgiving, and about 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas. I'm with my 2 daughters. At that point in time, they might have been 2 or 3 years old each. One of them, my daughter's filming back there. The one with the blue hair. That's Haley, my middle child. We were Christmas shopping for their mom, and we stopped by one of those health food restaurants, McDonald's, and Buddha's looking at me like, McDonald's? That's not a health food restaurant. And I guess I was too cheap to order the Happy Meal. I don't know. Bad me. And the woman felt a little guilty that my youngest and my middle one didn't get a Happy Meal, so she reaches over and she gives them the toy from the Happy Meal. And I said to my girls, well, what do you have to say? And my youngest, I wish you could have seen it. I can still see the face, the little face. She leans over and she says, again, this is 2 weeks past Thanksgiving. She leans over and she said, Happy Thanksgiving. I'm thinking, Happy Thanksgiving. Well, that was the wrong thing to say. Thanksgiving was 2 weeks ago. So I corrected her. I said, no, tell her you said thank you. And I got home that night, and I really thought about it. And I said, you know what? That is a phrase that we should be using every day of our lives. So I want to say I'm happy tonight that you're here. I'm thankful for you giving me the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you. And I would say to you, each of us is on this journey together. Let's look for opportunities to spread beyond what we see on the daily news and give people, look for opportunities to be in service to others and to give them the things that they need most in their lives, our attention. So I leave you with the final word, Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Back in 2002, I went online, because my wife had passed away in the previous year, and I went online, and this lady answered my profile. Our very first date was over at John Harvard's, which doesn't exist any longer, unfortunately. But then she says, I'm an area governor for Toastmasters. And I remember when I was growing up in Waterbury, looking at all these listings of Toastmasters meetings. And I said, this must be some type of secret organization because they never say what it really is. She said, I'm the area governor. We need to go down to Norwich. I said, fine, we could do that. So she's got to drive because she knows where she's going, supposedly. And as we go up the exit ramp, yes, I had to say it. As we go up the exit ramp, I said, this is a wonderful woman. I have to learn how to know her better. And last week, we celebrated our anniversary. We're married now. I got married in 2002. We celebrated our 60th anniversary. As we were going along to the various clubs, she says, you're not a member. I said, no. She wrote a check out and she says, now you are. And this was down in Middletown that we became first members. I said, we live in Windsor. What the hell are we doing always down here? So we moved up to Windsor. We've been here all this time. And I say, try it. You're all welcome to come. We have 2 pieces of paper over there. If you want to get our notices on our meetings, we meet the 2nd and 4th Mondays around the corner. We don't have a meeting on Christmas Eve. But we meet, well, we're not that dedicated. You need to be with your family. Toastmasters is a family though. And if you want to receive our notices, you're welcome to come. You don't have to join right away. Come on down, participate. This is not a typical meeting, of course. We don't have guest speakers like Doug all the time. But we have a meeting that starts at 7 o'clock and probably at 8:30, unless I get very winded and go on and on and on. But come, experience it. You do not know unless, like Doug was saying tonight, you need to step out. You need to try things. Just like I married her. That's experience and a half. Try Toastmasters.
Here's another thing in terms of if you guys have a presentation at work, you don't have to be a member. I can tell you, we've had a number of people over the years that have come into the club. They want to present something at work the following week. They'll come in and they'll just practice in front of one of the things we say about Toastmasters is, if you fall on your face, at least we'll tell you what a nice back you have. So, yeah, you can come and try it out and work a material that you may be presenting.
And we're not judgmental. We're supportive. That's an important thing about our organization that's entirely different than many other organizations that are out there, that we are supportive and not judgmental. And we have listing there, write down your name, your email address, and one will send you notices. And I brought a few refreshments tonight, and some of our other members have brought some refreshments. So partake, enjoy. If you have any questions, we're here. Thank you.
Thank you.